probably should like introduce ourselves, state the albums, and then just kind of start talking, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
so that
Trix.
what we did.
I'm driving a car right now, and yeah.
Want us to wait for you to pull over somewhere, or?
Oh yeah, I'm getting to a Walmart parking lot.
I love Walmart parking lots. It's so cozy.
Look, put it this way: if Trix has a car crash during this podcast, you know, we can still access
fucking podcasting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
like we gotta get on the news for it. So
that's podcasting, you know.
And podcasting while driving is going to become illegal.
So it's already illegal in my state. So hey,
whilst Trix is killing himself, I'm riddling.
Let's have a clear 3 seconds, and then we'll start.
Okay.
Hello, welcome to Dissonant Waves. This is episode 2. My name is Dominic.
I'm Riddlin.
I'm Trix. Fuck.
Okay, you got Trix and Riddlin there. How you doing?
Yeah. Pretty good.
And we're talking about 3 new albums. Oh, what?
Yeah, the Rabbitohs one. I'm doing great. Fucking fights on, boys. All right.
We got 3 albums today. We got Addicted by the Devin Townsend Project. We got In a Million Years by the Last Dinosaurs. And we've got Rich Beyond Your Wildest Dreams by Diarrhea Planet.
Oh, yeah.
And so are we just going to flip the coin for this one? Or are we just going to go at it?
I think we should spend 5 minutes just to acknowledge the name Diarrhea Planet.
It's a fucking great name.
It's a great name.
I also just want to get Devin out of the way, and then we can just talk about the other 2 albums for most of it, because I feel like that's what you both want to do.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Townsend Project wasn't exactly my favorite. Oh, I just almost hit a seagull. These birds don't give a fuck.
That's what happens when you drive. You become more dangerous.
You know, yeah.
This is Death Race with Trix.
So, Devin Townsend Project.
Hi, I'm in my 2010 Honda Accord.
Very metal-y kind of project sound. Devin Townsend's a metalist in Canada. He makes a lot of music. He has a million projects with different people and different setups. This is one of his many.
Almost like Buckethead levels of albums.
Yeah, and this was my kind of
introduction. Except a bit more
to him.
Quality than Buckethead.
Yeah,
this is my introduction
Buckethead
to him.
So very much throw shit at the wall.
I think it's a pretty good introduction to the kinds of things he can do. Both it kind of gives you a sense of his heavier stuff from like Strapping Young Lad, and more of his poppier, lighter side too.
Yeah,
it gives you the whole range. It's mostly him. There's another singer who guests on here a lot. Her name is Anke van Gersbergen, I think. She's Dutch, so I apologize if I mispronounced that, but it's mostly the 2 of them on the record.
Don't worry, I'm gonna mispronounce that way fucking more than any of you 2 are.
Yeah.
And I just really like Devin's whole musical sound. Has a wide range in his vocals. He can hit like operatic notes. He can hit like very low guttural screams. He can do everything almost. And Anka's there just kind of like harmonize and balance, and it produces, I think, a really quality, beautiful sound.
I feel like the best way to describe it, and it sounds sort of like a bash at it, but it's not, is kind of like operatic Linkin Park.
Which it's funny though. I was reading up on this, and he cited Nickelback as one of the primary inspirations for this album. I think Dark Horse. It was Dark Horse, yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, I can make many jokes about that, but like seriously, I would not have picked Nickelback as a inspiration for that.
Me either.
Canadian, I guess. That's about it though.
I mean, there's so many better Canadian bands like Rush.
And that's it. That's the only good Canadian band. Thank you for coming to Dissonant Waves.
Today we piss off the Canadians.
So somebody, I can't remember who said it. Somebody said that it wasn't really their thing necessarily. Who wants to talk about that?
You know what? I'm going to go straight up. No, I'm going to go straight up first here, Trix, because I'm going to just put the massive critiques in so we can end it up
right ahead.
on a high note. I struggled to get through this album. there were many times in which I was listening to it in which I just thought, I am bored to death, and I didn't want to feel this way. I genuinely wanted to enjoy the fuck out of this album, and there were some songs on here that I legitimate. Dominic has just muted himself so he doesn't fucking swear.
I was coughing.
I believe
No,
you.
should mute myself and cough, or just cough off mic and just hopefully it doesn't pick up.
Just pull a fucking Tazon Day.
But there was some songs up there, like I think it's Bend It Like Bender and ER, which I actually do see myself coming back to listen to. I thought those were some solid songs, but a lot of there I kind of really just struggled to get through.
I did too.
Just like the length of the song, or
it all blended together in this more nothing was happening way, in which everything sounded the same, and
it didn't
I
really
was just starting to get bored.
Together really well.
Like, I admire a lot of the flow that this album has. I do admire albums that sound like they don't stop and they just keep going, because that's what an album should be. It should just be a continuation to the end. But it was pretty easy to flow when I felt like it wasn't flowing anywhere. And I'm saying that despite there being quite a lot in this album. It's not to say this is... Yeah, it's not to say there's only one genre here. There was actually
with Hot Flash Heatwave, I thought we were talking about that too, the flow. And again, Awake, I think, is probably my least favorite moment on this album. Especially just that ending, which is just 3 minutes of ambient sounds. I would agree.
Yeah, and there have been some great albums that I've listened to in the past year, which have been quite ambient, which have been a lot more interesting. For example, Lowe's Double Negative. That was pretty much, I think, 40 minutes of ambient music, but that did it in such a way that it was keeping me staying there. It was interesting background music. But in this, it's just
sparkling water picking up on mic because I hear it.
Nah,
I'm eating. That's probably me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just keep hearing a bubbling or something.
But I found myself when I was listening to Awake, I would usually just skip that ending, that outro, because I couldn't be fucked waiting 3 minutes for the next song to play, which would usually be just a better album. Anyway, that's my harsh start to it.
I think the first two songs, "Addicted" and "Universe in a Ball," are fine. They're not my favorites because they're heavier in a way that can be enjoyable, but they don't really fit with the rest of the sound. So for me, it's like when
as a whole, as like somewhat of a diet metalhead, it wasn't heavy enough for me when I was going into it, because you kind of like played it up as like a metal album, but going into it, it was more like a symphonic metal album, and they're a bit genre-wise, because different genre-wise, because like when I just expect metal, I immediately think like, oh, heavy. It's gonna be kind of heavy,
right?
And but this is more symphonic. There is some heaviness to it, but it's lacking. Like, if that makes any sense at all.
I guess I know, like, Strapping Young Lad's probably one of Devin's more noted projects, and that's like super, super hardcore. And that's like, it's even a bit too much for me. So having anything that kind of approaches that, like, I think these first two songs kind of do. I guess that I view that as metal, but I can see where you're coming from for sure.
Yeah,
I think for me the album
like early thrash.
And for me, I think the album really kicks off with Bend It Like Bender, and then kind of ends with where Awake would end if it wasn't ambient. Then even then, Awake is kind of like it's fine, But I really like how that the whole all the sound kind of flows together for most of it, and then just kind of lop off the parts that don't.
I will say on the beginning of Awake, I did kind of enjoy how it got into like the major scale a little bit. So it was like kind of like a happy, heavy riff at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, if that makes any sense at all.
And I appreciate that he threw on ER as kind of a break.
Kind
of that new Maiden sound.
Is definitely my favorite off there. Because like you said, he has I admire his vocal range.
Yeah.
It's like a I know it's a comparison. It's not too weird. It's just no one ever does anymore. It's kind of like a Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ER is actually his vocals come off quite emotional in the whole song, and it's quite a pleasant listen on this album that is otherwise quite heavy. It's not really haunting heavy; it's just heavy. So to have something that's a lot more like emotional is so I guess kind of when you have emotional stuff, it usually does come off a little bit more haunting, but nothing comes up haunting in this whole album.
Yeah.
It is quite light-hearted of a metal album.
Yeah.
One thing I'd ask you both to do is to check out both versions of Hyperdrive. Did you both do that?
I did, and I preferred the original version.
Really?
I've not had any other time to like check out any of these other ones.
It's fine. But yeah, I like this version of Hyperdrive because I think Anka brings a lot to it that his original version is very muted and mellow. And I really like the energy she brings to it. What were you
The
thinking
original
about it, Trix?
Hyperdrive, I only listened to it like once or twice. But it felt like more like a traditional metal song. Other than like the weird ending with whatever, because it's like a concept album apparently or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Is that it? Or is that
I think
the
so.
prelude
It's
to the other two albums?
Really, for an album that has so much thrown at it, there's not much to talk about. And
Yeah.
I think in the end, that is the biggest disappointment of this album, in just my view, is there's a lot of moments on there that I've just forgotten because it just hasn't stuck out as memorable. The
Yeah, I
only
think-
ones that I can really remember is Addicted, Bend It Like Bender, and ER. And the other ones I can remember moments and stuff like that from, but nothing has stuck out to me as, yeah, this is getting me going, or anything like that. And again, there's nothing bad about it. It's like the Hot Flash Heatwave. There's nothing in which I would go, this is really bad, this is poorly executed, or anything like that.
Hmm.
But there's nothing keeping me there, and it's boring me. And
It's like
I know
musical popcorn.
yeah, I'm not the biggest metalhead as much as I was as a kid. So maybe there is a lot of nuances in here that I just do not quite understand.
It's funny 'cause
That's probably.
I feel like that you're summing up my kind of experience with the other two albums we're going to talk about. So this is very
Probably.
interesting.
Mm.
But I don't know. Let's try to talk about favorites real quick. Favorites, least favorites, and then we kind of talked about Awake already. I said Addicted and Universe into Ballwork are also kind of my least favorites, and I really like Hyperdrive and The Way Home and Numbered. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stick with Awake being my least favorite up there. I hate albums that have endings like that. It just comes off as a drag that's not really needed. It doesn't build it doesn't build into anything. It's just there, and it does ruin the song. It just does. And other than that, there wasn't really much else of the song that was really grabbing me. The best song, definitely ER. I think that's a song that will be played probably quite a lot by me as well in the next year. I can see myself coming back to it a lot. And I think Bend It Like Bender might also get a couple other plays. But definitely ER being the favorite, Awake being my least favorite.
I'm going to be completely honest. I feel like ER was one of the weaker tracks on it. Like, it was a good track, but it came out of nowhere. Like this, like kind of like acoustic track sort of thing.
No, I get what you mean by that. In the context of the album, it would probably be its like weakest point.
Yeah,
I think it's like a nice break.
But...
Personally, like I think it kind of separates like the heavier, or not heavier maybe, but like the more proggy stuff from just giving a little bit of respite from that. But I can see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I'm gonna bring comparison to the other Canadian band, Rush. They're a prog band for the most part, and they've thrown in sections like that in songs before. But it works more for them than it did for Devin Townsend because they advertised themselves as more at first as just a rock band as opposed to a metal band. If that makes any sense at all.
Are they supposed to be metal? I thought they were more of a rock band. So I mean, I guess that's
No,
successful.
they're more of a rock band, but and I'm saying that's why like the breaks in some of like their longer songs, where they switch to like acoustic, like at the end of Hemisphere, it works more for them than it did for Devin Townsend.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It's less of a genre. I was about to say genre contrast.
And strongest track on the album, I'd have to say "Bend It Like Mender." That was the only one that I could like that, and like the beginning of Awake. I quite like the riff at the beginning of Awake.
I gotta say, the best part about Bend It Like Bender as well is definitely forgot how to pronounce her name's vocals. I think they're definitely the standout of that track as well.
It's Anka, but I could be wrong.
Anka van Giersbergen. Geiersbergen?
Giersbergen? I don't know. Dutch.
Geiersbergen. Something like that.
All right. Let's move on to
I think we should move on to Diarrhea Planet.
All right.
But
I first heard about these guys through a podcast, and not a music podcast, a conspiracy theory podcast.
The Earth isn't flat; it's made out of diarrhea. Nice.
Is it the conspiracy that they're a fake band or something?
Oh no, they were talking. They're comedians, and they just like to riff on conspiracy theories. It's nothing serious. And one of them said, "Oh, I'm doing a show, and Diarrhea Planet's going to be there. They're these hard rocking dudes with 4 guitar players." And that's how I first heard about them.
Yeah, it was kind of sad to hear that they broke up recently. That's a bummer.
Yeah, it was. They like I want to say around October last year. But from what I understand, it's less of them breaking up and more of them, okay, I feel like we've done everything we can with the band.
The name, probably. Fair. They just named themselves something normal they could have kept going, maybe?
No, I think they exhausted their gimmick with the 4 guitars. There's only so much you can do with that much layering. Like Iron Maiden, they had 3 guitar players. And after a while, a lot of their songs started to sound samey. I'm saying that as a fan of Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of people like to go at like the names of bands and think, oh, it's a joke, it's going to get old. But a lot of people who usually stay with these bands and like listening to them get past that joke and just go straight to their music. Anyway,
yeah.
And a lot of the time, you just stay for the music. Like, I listen to a lot of Tropical Fuckstorm. I listen to Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. I mean, those are 2 band names that are quite out there. They're noticeable names. Bands like Holy Fuck, and I mean, they're again quite explicit names.
There's the metal band Anal Cunt too, which my father actually live in.
But in the end, I don't listen to these bands because of their name. I listen to the band because I genuinely enjoy their music, and I feel like with bands like Diarrhea Planet and something like that, the whole name doesn't really matter, and a lot of the people who keep coming back isn't because Diarrhea Planet. Although I could be wrong, there could be a couple frat boys.
Well, I mean, I feel like the name Diarrhea Planet there is in there initially to like get people like grabbed.
No, definitely.
Yeah. It's like been an established thing that happens a lot in music.
Like Aria Speed Dealer and John Cougar Concentration Camp, which is one of my favorites.
What was it? There's a band called Michael Sarah Palin.
There's one that's like the musk of a carrot from a vagina or something. Let me see if I can find this.
Our manager said our band name was too long, so after a whole band meeting and everything, this is the name we came up with. It's something along those lines.
Sounds like a young adult novel, I feel like.
There's also the kids who color outside the lines is one of my favorites.
Well, I found a lesbian Viking band called Viking metal band called Sapphic Musk. So
That sounds metal though. I like that.
Eventually, we'll get onto the album, but we can spend 20 minutes just talking about band names. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can find a good
We're
one.
just kids.
I'm taking that off the best tracks of the album now, just because of that. I hope you're happy.
Right, baby head.
but what did you guys think of this guy of this band?
I enjoyed this album a lot more the more I was listening to it.
I would agree.
I found on first listen there was a bit I thought that became a bit like I'm not sure this is really unique or anything, but the more I listened to it, the more I was starting to appreciate a lot of the music that was coming out. And
Yeah.
I ended up enjoying this album quite a lot. Like it's Canadian punk, so no surprise I would compare him to Pup. But that was the first thought that I kind of was having as I was enjoying it. This is a band that kind of sounds like that early Pup sound.
Canadian?
Probably a bit more harsher than Pup usually is, but that's what I was thinking at the start. And
They definitely have a bluesier edge to them.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if this is an album under which I would also go like there's so much new that's coming out of here that it's like you haven't heard anything like this before. I do think they've got a unique sound. I think this is a sound that is distinctively them.
It's kind of reminded of like Dinosaur Jr. in parts, but I would generally agree their sound is unique. But at the same time, I feel like I was kind of coming around to it, like you were saying. The more I listened to it, the more I kind of picked up on like the distinctiveness of each song. But I still have not gotten to that point where I can tell you every song, like whatever song is. So it still flows together for me in ways that I'm looking at the lyrics or the titles, and I'm like, I kind of know what that one is, kind of don't.
Well, the one there was a couple songs off here in which it kind of grabbed me after a while. One that really grabbed me straight away, which I just loved the rawness, the punchiness of it, is the song Togano or Togano or whatever how you pronounce it.
Togano!
Yeah, that one. It's short, punchy, and it just grabbed me as just a. I think that's a great kind of summary of the album in that song as well. It's that kind of the short, punchy punk. I mean, Canadian punk, surprisingly out of like a country like Canada, in which you don't usually expect it being outside of Canada.
They're from Nashville, I thought too.
I thought they were from Nashville.
I thought they were from Nashville. I thought they were Canada. I might have been thinking of something else. Nashville. I might be thinking of something else. Oh, I'm thinking of Devin Townsend. Sorry, fuck me. Fuck me.
He can really change. He's a shapeshifter, you know. Just he shaves his head and he can do anything.
Yeah, look at the members of Diarrhea Planet. Yeah, it's that guy Devin Townsend. The other guy, don't know what.
5 other white guys.
It's all Devin Townsend, just wearing different.
Here
wigs.
we go. Yeah, Jordan Smith, Brent Toller, Evan Bird, Emmett Miller, Mike Bowler, and Devin Townsend.
Yeah, you could rearrange every name, and it's all Devin Townsend.
It's all Devin Townsend. Yeah, they figured it out.
He's just moving fast. It's like how Ringo is the only Beatle, and he's moving really fast.
Something I was thinking about while listening to this, I think it was kind of apparent in Ugliest Son, especially, where it's like, I don't know if the lyricist, the singer, is necessarily fitting for all of the stuff that the instruments do, because I feel like they have a lot of really interesting instrumentation and they do a lot of cool stuff. Like Ugliest Son is like an extended intro that goes on for a long time, and then once the singer kicks in, I was kind of like taken out of it. Like, oh, it's just that voice again. Okay, like it's not. He's not bad. It's just. I feel like it's the most limited part of the whole group.
I will say that some of their earlier stuff has a different singer on it. I think, but I feel like that's kind of done on purpose because like the emphasis isn't on the voice; it's on the guitar.
Yeah.
I'd say the highlight of this album, though, is to me the outro to Kids. The I just can't, but not with the testy pop though.
You
I'd
want
say,
another take of it? I feel like you could almost mix yourself in there.
but I like that moment because I do kind of have a sucker for more emotional sounding music and vocals. But you had that kind of. I feel like it was soft ending. Hold on, I just want to make sure before. No. Sorry, I'm thinking of something else. But it has those like loud kind of crashing guitars in there, and the screaming with just kids and everything like that. It is kind of just a good outro to the song. I don't think there's anything special about it that makes it again like you haven't heard this chord progression ever or anything like that. And I am kind of a sucker for this kind of stuff. But you know, I'm an idiot anyway, so I'm still going to enjoy the fuck out of it.
Highlight was
I will say
definitely. Go on.
when I first heard the album, I was listening to it in my car, and when the song "Emmett's Vision" came on, which is the last track, and all four guitar players are doing like that different tapping part. They have a voice so that like each one's coming out of like a different car speaker. I gotta tell you, that was a pretty fucking.
Oh yeah, that's
Like,
where he ends it with all the shout outs and stuff as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, the best part for me was Enter the Great Gate into Babyhead was a really smooth transition that I really appreciated. And then Skeleton Head is also just really great too. So that 3-track section I really liked a lot.
Yeah, I'll
Dreams
put
was cool,
Skeleton
too.
Head as one of the best tracks off the album as well.
Yeah, it was very
where
ambient, not
he's
ambient, but like moody
eventually just
and
wailing on this
interesting.
skeleton head.
I guess it probably has the same problem with Devin Townsend for me as well. Is that outside of all of this, though, there's not quite much to talk about. I did not get bored at this album at any point. I genuinely had a blast listening to it from start to finish.
Yeah.
However, I do think there's also it's not a critique of the album when I say this. I don't think there's too much more to talk about though than just the guitars. And
No,
I mean they are harsh vocals as well.
That's kind of their gimmick, I would say.
I know, and again, that's probably why they did a band saying there's not much more we can do with this as well. And that's the thing. There's only so much you can do with a gimmick like that.
Yeah. But I will say what they did with it is great.
Oh, absolutely. This is, it's a great album. That's really all I can say. It's a great album.
Yeah.
Trying to research them, and it was really actually very hard to research them because their website redirects to a Tumblr page if you like try to click on it. And and their Tumblr page is nothing on it, and their old Blogspot site or whatever has a lot of stuff, but you have to like really be careful. Like you have to hit stop on the page loading and then try to make your way through it as fast as you can to find out what you can, and it's a mess. I don't get it.
On the bright side, though, it was pretty easy to find the record on eBay.
I need to buy that record because that's probably my favorite album by them.
The art is something.
The art is beautiful. So no one can really see it because this is a podcast. But what it is, it's like this kind of really rough. It looks hand drawn, but it doesn't look crudely drawn. It's quite well drawn. It's just a pink background. A guy. It's just a hand. It's just a guy's hand. Nothing else. A bunch of $1 bills, and then just a knife through it, and then just in what looks like Arial text. Just Diarrhea Planet. I'm rich beyond your wildest dreams.
The text is improperly aligned. It's a prison shiv.
Mm.
4 guitars. There were 4 of them.
Yeah.
I feel like there's stuff you can do with that still, but I guess they disagree.
Well, when they started the band, initially they wanted to be able to play songs that had overdubs live. So like what an overdub in a recording is they'll record something, rewind back the tape, and record on top of it again. And so they wanted to be able to do songs like that had that, but live. And they're one of the few bands where I've like watched live footage of them where they sound like the album.
Okay.
Something that's like I can think of that's a little familiar to that is obviously King Gizzard. If you've ever heard the song Nuclear Fusion, there's a part where they go nuclear fusion and the whole baritone like really, it's like this actual form of throat singing. Like they didn't when they did it, they could have easily just modified this guy's sound to voice to make it as low as possible, but the guy actually learned how to sing that low so that he can perform it live.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
And I've seen it live. He can still do it. It's not something that he can only do once. He can still do it, and it's great. It sounds just like it does on the record.
Or that was like inspiration from Björk's throat singing album. Nowhere.
Nah. Is there anything else that we got about this album, or should we go into favorites and least favorites?
I guess we can go into favorites and least favorites.
The trilogy
Anything.
thing was interesting. The girls trilogy.
Oh yeah, we're talking about
Girls
girls
Trilogy.
trilogy first.
I was confused at first because Loose Jewels came first, but Orange Girls is the second part. But that stuff happens all the
Orange
time.
Girls is the first part.
Oh, is it? Okay, because it says Student of Blues Part 1, White Girls, so I wasn't sure.
Is it Student of the Blues Part 1? I thought it was Student of the 2. No, it is Part 1. No, but Orange Girls comes first, pretty sure. I feel like they just added that subtitle there because there's no other song that's Student of the Blues Part 2.
No.
But it's Orange Girls first, then White Girls, then Platinum.
Natural evolutions.
Yes. You lose the spray tan and then you go gray.
It's life. That is life.
Yep. But Orange Girls is just kind of like a raunchy punk song off their first album, I'd say.
It's fitting enough, I guess, for their first album,
Yeah.
sure.
There's nothing really remarkable about it. But I just threw it in there to include like the entire Girls trilogy.
Fair enough. I think we all threw in something in this week, so it was fitting.
Yeah. And then there's then there's White Girls Student of the Blues Part 1. And I gotta say that's probably my second favorite of the trilogy. But it's my favorite off of that album. And I just really like the breakdown in the middle of it where you just hear them build from the one guitar.
Platinum Girls is your favorite, I would assume, from that?
Platinum Girls is my favorite, I would say. Just because it's the most like up-tempo, fun to listen.
Okay. So, White Girls is your favorite. Anything else that really sticks out to you?
It's just a fun album front to back. Like, there's not really a low spot. In my opinion.
Owen?
What's your favorites and least favorites?
Me, like I said, I think Enter the Great Gate, Babyhead, Skeleton Head, an easy top 3 for me. White Dreams is cool too. I think low point for me, maybe Ugliest Son, because like I said, I really liked the instrumentation and I was let down by the vocals. And Sound of My Ceiling Fan was cool at first. Then the more I listened to it, the more I got annoyed by it. So,
Oh yeah, I forget about the ending of the Sound.
Yeah, Ceiling Fan does drag on for a little, which is a little
just harmonics for like 2 minutes.
which I'm not like opposed to or anything. I just I don't know, like it just started getting to me after a while.
I will say, like, funny anecdote about that. On local messaging boards around where I live, there used to be a guy who would joke about his mother abusing him and that sort of thing. And like the only thing he remembers from his childhood is the sound of a box fan on Medium. and so just the term "sound of my ceiling fan" just kind of evokes that for me.
It's real dark. Wow. Okay.
What a funny antidote.
Yeah, that's
Well, he was
some George Burns
joking.
shit right there.
I've met the guy.
I would say my favorite is Kids. I just, again, really love the outro to that song. I actually did not mind the outro to Emmett's Vision as well. I know it's a little cheesy, but it's fun.
It's very
Yeah.
Fun cheesy. It's not annoying. It's just fun. Again, Skeleton Head, Tagano, those are also some really great ones, but I reckon the best Kids. Yeah, no, if I can Sound of My Ceiling fan probably does have to go into my least favorite. I don't hate the song. I think it's good, but I just don't think it matches up with the rest.
Read something that was like this was recorded over the course of maybe like a week or two. It was kind of live takes mostly, so I can kind of see
they
where.
recorded the album in 2 days.
Okay, so even shorter time. So I can kind of see where this kind of all just kind of came together, and they went with what they had. And some of it was really cool. Some of it was not as great, but still all right. So I kind of appreciate that for sure.
What you say is your favorites and least favorites of Districts? I think you said White Girls or something was your favorite, or I could.
Yeah, it's either White Girls or Emmett's Vision. I gotta say, and least favorite, Skeleton Head drags on a little bit, I think, and Field of Dream. No, Kids is the. I'm not really the biggest fan of the intro to Kids. But it does build and get better.
Yeah, I can just picture some 27-year-old screaming, "We're just kids," and it reminds me of like Green Day when they would do their old stuff later on.
All right. Anything else, or forever hold your peace?
What is Emmett's vision? What did he see? I don't know.
Find out next week.
Actually, I will pull up the lyrics right now.
So I like the baby head is one word, skeleton head is 2 words. That's some funness there.
Too. The story about Emmett's Vision, the first time we played in Cleveland, we didn't have anywhere to stay. We met this girl who was really cool. She used to live above a funeral home and invited us to stay there. So we went to this funeral home after we'd been drinking a lot, and we decided to explore the downstairs. There's this painting of a dude who had some sort of skin disease, and his face is kind of rotten in the painting. And we were like, oh my god, so scary. And we were kind of tipsy, so it was even more exaggerated. We went down even further in the funeral home. Then Emmett came running back out. He was freaking out because he had gone into this room and there was a dead body laying in a casket for a funeral the next day. He was so freaked out that he went back upstairs and played a classical concerto almost all the way through for all of us. It was super fun and kind of weird. So that song is about Emmett seeing a dead body and coming up and playing guitar.
Then shout outs to everybody.
Yeah.
It's a cool story though. That's one of those band stories you hear about.
Yeah, it's cool to hear those types of stories.
Yeah, and if you look through like Virginia's page on all of their songs, they have like a fun little note about it.
Are any of them doing anything else, or are they all just done with music in general?
I'm not sure. They're probably still doing stuff, I'd imagine.
You'll probably see one pop up in a couple of years or something.
I like that. I'd like to see what else they can do separately.
Yeah.
Shall we move on?
Let's move on to the Last Dinosaurs.
Last Dinosaurs.
Prerequisite Aussie band.
So, Last Dinosaurs in a million years. Back all the way in 2012, boys. Get your nostalgia goggles on.
Yes, high school. Great.
I did not like being 12.
That's crushing.
Oof. So, In a Million Years is the debut album from Australians, with around 3/4 of the band at this time, who have since devolved into a three-piece, being of Japanese descent, which is why the song "Time and Place" has a Japanese version on deluxe editions and stuff like that. I think it's on the iTunes bonus and some Japanese on Spotify. You can get it on.
Not on YouTube. That's the only place I could find it.
I found it on YouTube.
Yeah, I've listened to it on Spotify. In my opinion, "In a Million Years" is one of the most underrated Australian albums in the alternative scene that we have here. I discovered Last Dinosaurs, I think, around 2017, 2016, around then. I just heard the song Zoom. I think that's how everyone who discovered them themselves found them out. And I remember just out of nowhere just deciding to put this album on. I can't remember what influenced me. It might have been someone had talked about it online. I can't fucking remember. I just put this album on, and to this day, it is still one of my most played records. I don't know. I don't know what I enjoy so much about this record, and that's why I brought it into here, because it is one of my favorites of not just the decade of all time. It's not my absolute favorite, but I'm never gonna say anything bad. So you say one thing bad, and I'm just out of here, boys. I'm not gonna
Ready
deal
to
with
leave?
this shit. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is the first time I listened to it, it just seemed kind of generic to me.
No, that's fair.
And but then, like, as I listened to it more, like I start listening to like the bass riffs, and like the bass player has a fun stuff going on, kind of like fun frills and stuff. And it just sort of grew on me. One kind of like thing that I would say bothered me throughout the entire listening is the singer doesn't really sound invested.
He doesn't do a lot different throughout the whole thing. It's kind of the same sounds he makes.
Yeah.
So, actually, I understand that, and I'll now flip this into why that's a good thing. So, I'll put on for reference the song "Weekend," in which he doesn't really sound passionate until the ending, in which he goes, start screaming, "Do you really want it?" And that whole song, if you haven't looked at it lyrically, is it's not too hard if you listen to it to figure it out. It's about going into a relationship with somebody who's only going into the relationship because they're depressed. And this whole kind of like not invested thing, it's not because he's not invested in singing. To me, it is reflective of the emotion in the song, because for the whole song, he's kind of realizing that this relationship is not going to work because she doesn't actually love him. She just loves being loved or anything like that. And that's why you got those lyrics, "I'll die for you any day, my life's over anyway." And when you also have that huge contrast between the kind of that real defeated style of vocals to this whole passionate shouting at the end of the song, I think it contrasts perfectly with how, because I also remember in that song as well, it gets louder when he starts shouting.
The one where they harmonize on "All Right" or something like that, where he kind of like he says something "all right," and then they kind of all converge on that one word. There's that different song.
Are we talking about in the Weekend or?
I wasn't sure. I can't remember right now. Because I remember there's one song where they all kind of and maybe it's just the singer backing himself, where he kind of harmonized on "It's All Right" or something, and it kind of goes like higher and higher. Wasn't sure if that was it though.
No, not on Weekend. I'm trying to remember what song that is on, which should be something that I should remember by heart, but apparently that's just me.
It could be a Hot Flash Heatwave thing.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of Zoom, and yeah, where he goes, I told you. I tell myself it's all right, all right, all right. Yeah. That's in the opener.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Right.
And I do think a lot of the emotion that comes out of this album as well is, quite sonically, not always vocally in this. Apparently, he got fed up with my shit.
Tricks.
Yeah, that's
sorry. I'm on mobile data right now, so I dipped out for a sec.
Oof.
I have
We're-
unlimited. Don't worry.
Second day, I thought you just got fed up with my shit.
Oh
We're
no,
gonna get through this.
I initially muted myself because I had to fart and I didn't want that to appear on mic.
Well, now everyone knows anyway.
Yeah, I know. I
In a
figured
Walmart
me
parking
saying
lot.
I had to fart was better than just farting.
I understand. I muted myself to cough, and it worked out.
Anyway, there's a lot more I can go through in this album, but I'll go for it later. I'll let you two have a huge criticizing of it first.
Decide where to start.
I honestly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, Trix. Get out of here, Dominic.
It's gonna go in my general rotation of albums. I think I quite enjoyed it.
This is another one where I have to keep listening to it to really appreciate it. Because, like, I think Trick said it. Like, when I first started listening to it, it was kind of generic, and I didn't understand the whole, like, award-winning, high-selling volume of it. But now that I've listened to it a few times, I can understand it more. And I'm not entirely there yet. Like I was saying before, I still think of Hot Flash Heat Wave sometimes when I'm trying to remember songs from this album. But I'm definitely working out the individual melodies and like the sounds that help me remember, like Andy or I Can't Decide or Repair or something.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that.
Granted, it's because I've been listening to this album for like 3 years straight that I can remember pretty much how every song goes on here. So there was a car alarm like outside my house that is making a really fucking great beat right now.
That's a great lyric. I wish they would use that more.
But one criticism that I can kind of get is that there are some times in which the songs don't really flow as well as much as other albums do. Like the transition from the ending to Zoom to the start of I Can't Help You is, not the greatest. Like I don't think it's too jaded or anything, but it's not really that great of a flow.
I kind of was reminded of like this is a band that got signed to maybe like a major label in Australia, and so now they're making their big debut, and maybe they're getting some help by the whoever's helping them, So maybe some of these songs are kind of things they were approached with.
I'm going to see what label they were in, but they've never been in a big label.
They're with UM Australia right now. I know. I think that's what this album up, but I'm not sure.
Let's see. So their first album,
Process at first, I think. That's what my notes say.
I Google
BG Bay label Due Process.
Due Process.
Yeah.
And then at least now they're with Universal Music Australia, so maybe not then. But okay, yeah.
Yeah, so Universal has quite a lot of other labels under their belt in Australia.
You think, Tricks?
It followed up an EP apparently. Back from the Dead.
So Back from the Dead's their debut EP, which one of the songs you'll actually recognize is Honolulu, in which they so usually I don't like it when bands just grab a song from their EP and stick it onto their debut, but they've actually fully re-recorded the song to fit with the album.
It's fair, I think. As long as you make it fit,
Due Process
I think it's
is
totally
owned by
there.
Universal.
And I honestly prefer the album version by far.
Yeah.
To the EP version.
I'm trying to think of a band that
think Never Shout Never did that at some point. And Devin Townsend re-recorded his own song for another album.
I can think of an album that I can think of a song that was on an album that was improved single. Which is rare. So one of the bands I'm going to bring up at some other point is Petite League. They're one of my favorites. And their song Raspberry Seeds is a bit on the slower side. I think it's just like classical guitar or maybe even like a ukulele with Lorenzo's voice. And they remastered it in 2017, like a year or two after its initial release. And it's a completely different song now, but with the same lyrics. And it's just more fun. And it's rare that they do that. I don't think I've ever seen a band before.
I can appreciate that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. I'll post it in the Discord later.
There are bands that re-record their albums as acoustics, and that's always interesting too.
Which next week we're going to get to one of those.
Boy, I didn't listen to that one, but maybe I will. We'll see. Find out next week.
Don't have to.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was like we talked about maybe we won't, but we'll see.
Oh boy.
Only acoustic albums of popular things in the 90s. Thank you. That's all.
Maybe we'll come back to the album in 20 episodes. Maybe I'll just suggest it.
Yes, acoustic versions. Thank you. So going back onto Last Dinosaurs. Where should I go back to on this?
I appreciate that they're named for the Pillows song, I think. The Pillows are a cool Japanese band. They did the soundtrack, I think, for Fooly Cooly, so that's always a plus in my book.
From what I watched of that, I enjoyed. I only got a few episodes.
Only 6 episodes, so I mean, it's interesting. It comes from a very interesting place in anime history. We can talk about that another time, perhaps. But yeah.
This isn't an anime podcast; it's a music podcast.
Get your anime off our podcast, weebs.
Look, I will put anime in this podcast whether you like it or not, and I'll find ways to do it.
Oh fuck! He's gonna choose an anime album. Not next week, the week after next week.
So going back into the album, so yeah, whilst I was admitting that the flow is a little non-existent at times, I do think it's an album that is quite consistent in its quality the whole way through. Me personally, I wouldn't say there's a song off there that I would go, I'd never want to hear this. There are definitely songs I think that are weaker than others, but
I'd agree with that.
I would agree with that too. Nothing was bad, or I didn't want to listen to it again. It was just kind of all,
Nothing stuck out like a sore thumb. But it was either way, in my opinion. It was consistently okay, in a good way.
Yes.
Nothing really bumped it up or down, but it was good.
And I feel like the more you listen to this album, you two really had a week, and a week is usually enough to get quite a good impression of an album. But I felt like, having listened to this album for years, I have noticed a lot of nuances, quite a bit of Last Dinosaurs has a sound that is distinctively Last Dinosaurs. And it doesn't always sound like it doesn't always sound like when you first listen to it that this is a distinctive sound. But it really is. There's no other band that I would go sounds exactly like this. There are bands that you can compare this to, bands that you can say that, yeah, they've definitely gotten some inspiration from, but I do think this is a sound that I can only ever really think of this band with.
And they do have the surf rock influence I can kind of hear in other bands for sure, but I would agree otherwise. Yeah, totally.
I feel like the big influence that they kind of have, besides the whole alternative scene in Australia, and this is an album that I don't know if I'll ever request on this podcast, but it's definitely one of the most influential albums of the noughties for Australian music was Cut Copies in Ghost Colours, which
Never heard
pretty
of it.
much. So in Australia, the song off that Lights in Music was an incredible hit. It was played fucking everywhere. And that album kind of it really inspired a new generation of Australian alternatives, specifically in the kind of like indie dance. And Last Dinosaurs, you don't always kind of look at it because they do have quite a lot of indie rock in there, have a bit of indie dance influence in them as well. Especially if you listen to a lot of the Australian indie dance scene, which isn't like this whole like dubstep kind of sound. The indie dance in Australia is like the album that I've suggested for the next episode. That is something that I would describe only as Australian indie dance.
I already talked about that one. You know, time and place.
I would just, yeah, we'll get to that. But to me, that I would just lump that under the umbrella for my American.
So Time and Place is like one of the only songs of the whole album that's not about a relationship.
I noticed that too. There was a lot
Yeah,
of
they
relationship stuff.
Yeah, well,
They
Time and
definitely
Place
have the
is
late '10s relationship song because every like pop song, at least in America, it's in like the early 2010s about a relationship.
Time and Place, because I've seen this band live, they explained the meaning behind the song, is actually about his interest in Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. I think I had notes for both this one and Diarrhea Planet where I was like, this is very heterosexual. This is very hetero. This is very hetero. Like casually noting, like, yep, more of that.
Sorry, he's in love with
Yep,
Nikola
that's straight.
Tesla.
That's got a case of the straights.
You're gonna have to throw one of those out now.
I mean, you know, I still appreciate it, obviously. I'm just kind of like laughing, like, oh, that's another relationship song. Oh, that's another girl. Oh, okay.
That's a car backing up.
That was me turning my car on because I was suffocating.
Joys a recording from a parking lot, you know? Anything for the podcast.
Recording from the finest Walmart parking lots.
You pick us up something? I think we could probably use some nourishment.
Yeah, can you go back to Macca's, please? Pick me up a frozen Coke.
They don't have frozen Cokes in America.
Well, your country is
Frozen
fucked.
Cokes?
In Australia, frozen Cokes are fucking everywhere. That's why we're
Amazing.
doing only slightly better.
I mean, I'd probably
think
get
we
like an
have them
icy
at-
from a
at,
7-Eleven, but
at
that sounds
Burger
great.
King?
You can go to KFC's and get fucking frozos here.
Is it in a can, or is it just like a big gulp thing?
It's like in a plastic
It
cup that we use
it's like a
to
slushy,
destroy the
a
environment.
Slurpee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Burger King has them.
Yeah, the Hungry Jacks, which is Burger King here.
Hungry
We've gone
Jack,
from Last
Burger
Dinosaurs
King.
to fast food.
The last dinosaurs got turned into plastic, and that plastic is what we use to consume. So, in a million years, we'll be just like them.
Hashtag deep.
Oh, what was everyone's favorite tracks?
I'll let you two go first because there's specific moments of the song that of this album and stuff like that that I'll go through too in the favorites and stuff. So
First,
Used to Be Mine is probably my favorite. Like there was like some kind of grip to it that just hit me in the head the right way. If that makes any sense. Like I can't
it's
explain it.
There's a moment on there actually that I'll be explaining as well. That is one of my favorite moments of the album.
I
And
like
the low points are on my version of the song. There's techno remix. of
I
Zoom
listen
and
to
Andy.
this.
You thought Zoom was the low point.
No.
So, Trix, you there?
Yeah, I said the remixes of Zoom and Andy were the low.
They're not even a part of the official album, though.
They're on the tour edition.
No,
What's on
like the
Google?
actual album ends after Repair.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying I'm saying that it's a good thing that I couldn't really pick out a low point.
And Dominic, your favorite and least favorite?
Favorite Zoom, maybe Repair, maybe Honolulu. Kind of all three of those. Least favorite? I don't know. I Can't Help You. Maybe Sunday Night. Special shout out to Satellites. I really love like instrumental sounds and just kind of going for no vocals at all. So that was
Plus
cool.
it is like a real intro to Weekend.
Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, Zoom is really cool. Repair, Honolulu, and then yeah, the ones I can't remember are the low points.
Yeah, I'll probably start with the least favorite because I want to end this with my favorite moments of that. Least favorite, probably Sunday Night. I reckon. I don't know. Sunday Night just never really. It's a quality song the whole way, but it never really builds up to the rest that the album does. Something that I love about the album is that you notice it the more you listen to, is that it builds up a lot to create a lot of just great outros. Like songs are allowed to take their time most of the time in there to have these just really just bombastic, beautiful outros.
Used to Be Mine's a great example.
Yeah, Used to Be Mine is lyrically probably the most emotional song off the album. It starts off with like this kind of like the lo-fi, everything's clashing together kind of sounds, and then it builds up into this soft kind of just what's the way of cruising guitars.
I have a crooning voice too.
Yeah. The line that like just always gets me. Yeah, it's not a line that's like really hidden in there. It's right before the end. The whole so much time, so many stories. Why did history feel fucking boring? All our myths and all our exploring. Why do I just feel fucking boring?
That's a solid move.
The more you read into it, I feel like it's something that becomes a lot more relatable. Not in just like the whole losing of relationships or anything like that, but just with kind of regret, with just looking on the past and on the bad times. The whole idea of like looking back in a moment in such agony or just such sadness has that whole like, why did I do that? It was so boring. I didn't want that. None of it was fun kind of way. It's a really simplistic lyric, but sometimes simplicity in lyrics don't get as much credit as they should.
Yeah.
There's nothing subtle about the line in there. It's not so out there that it feels like there's no creativity in there, but you fully understand what he's saying.
Yes, simple lyrics have their place for sure.
Yeah, and this is definitely a place where I feel like it just shines completely. Because you have the rest of the song that has somewhat of these metaphors in there, even though it is quite in the album, even though this one is quite honest and truthful the whole way through. And when you have these kind of outros that are just so simple, plus it doesn't overstay its welcome as well, despite it being somewhat of a repeated kind of outro hook. And then he does it twice, and then it just doesn't get said again, and then you have him just screaming in a way that sounds cool and not my fucking shitty singing voice.
No judgment.
Yeah, but that is definitely one of my favorite moments on there. Weekend as well, I think, is bloody brilliant of a track. The whole I know the whole kind of uninspired sounding vocals don't always go with everyone, but I think they really shine there as they really kind of showcase this whole giving up kind of attitude, which the song does display. And it is a song that has quite a lot of doubt in it, in its lyrics. And that's why I think it's quite necessary there. Songs like I Can't Decide, I think has a really great outro to it, as well as you start to see it kind of just build more and more. I would say the favorites I have of this album would probably, as much as I love Weekend, I love Used to Be Mine, there were some real classics on this album. Even the outro to Repair, the Can't You Be My Hardest Decision, just being shouted in the background, is brilliant. But the classics of this album, I feel, are truly just the songs that I always come back to and have not taken off my playlist in like 3 years. Zoom, absolute fucking banger of a tune. Andy, absolutely love it every time I hear. But I think my favorite of this album, no doubt, has to be Honolulu. There's something so cheery in the way that everybody's shouting, hey. I love how when the chorus comes together, every time I hear it, I think of the Circle of Death, even though it's not a metal track at all. That's all I can think. It's just this whole craziness that's kind of coming down. Everything's kind of crashing with these guitars coming in, the whole screen, like shouting and everything. I can only just think of people just dancing in a circle in a mosh pit.
Been to a Last Dinosaurs concert?
Yeah, I've been to a Last Dinosaurs.
What's the demographic like? Could you open up like a death pit there and get it going, or?
Nah, you got the Australian music nerd scene there. You don't.
It's not like a Wiggles concert where you can open up a death pit.
No, you can open a death pit anywhere. Just open up a Radiohead, just get it going.
Some fat 50-year-old nerds moshing it out to OK Computer.
Yeah, but even though Honolulu it's just nothing but a love track. I love the whole ending. The story's only just begun. And this is their debut album. This is pretty much near the closer of the album. And I think there's all these other parts and the times in this album, which I think it's kind of like Zoom, I think is a great reflection of where they want to be in pretty much the music scene. And Honolulu's ending, I think, is also subtly like referencing that as well, with the whole story has only just begun. Like, because the album's about to end. And you have that shouting as well.
Yeah.
So, favorite track, I have to give to Honolulu. Least favorite, Sunday Night. The album's a 10 out of 10, though. Don't even fucking argue.
Is that it then?
10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, 13 out of 10.
12 out of 10.
2012 out of 10.
Damn it.
10 out of 10.
I think Ritalin's broken.
The Japanese version of Time and Place is pretty cool too.
It's pretty cool, but yeah, there's not really much more to talk about in that other than the lyrics are in Japanese. Again, they've had the Japanese ancestry, so you can know why they've done it. They do actually have quite a strong Asian following as well.
I can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah. But that's again because they are, Japanese. Or Japanese Australian. Let's see. Is there anything else off this album that I haven't talked about? There's not really much more to talk about on Zoom that no one else hasn't already, because that is their most popular track. Because I think it was in Need for Speed 2014 or something like that. Or which one was it? Need for Speed 2015, it might have been.
Zoom's like a really radio-friendly song. I feel like that they put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Let's see. It might have been 2015 one. No. Come on, I'm gonna find which one it was in. Oh, no. It was in Need for Speed Most Wanted. That was the one that had Zoom in it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I Can't Help You. I like this song a lot. I think it has the same issues as Sunday Night, though, in which it doesn't really build up to that outro like every other song on there does. Time and Place, if you have the if you're in love with Nikola Tesla, you gotta fucking love that song.
You gotta know the difference, right?
Yeah. Andy, I mean, it's just I just love that track. It's fun to dance to that one as well when you hear it live. Satellites, Weekend, yeah, Can't Decide, blah blah blah. Yeah, I just love the album. And
Maybe
I
one
want to
day I
be
will
with
love it
it
as much as
forever.
you.
You better.
One day. Back to this 100 episodes, and we'll talk about what were our favorite albums from the whole experience. And mine will be this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, you got to be like, you're gonna secretly put Devin Townsend at number one, and I'm just gonna actually get a plane ticket to America. You got to hear it on the podcast, the whole 14-hour flight, as I come and slap your ass down.
If you fly me to them, I will be really much appreciative because there are some attractive folk in that band.
And also, if they do ever actually like perform in America, I reckon that's a band that you go and see live. They're not the most they're not the greatest live act you've ever seen, but they're live. They sound a lot like their studio songs, and they just perform so well. Sometimes they also do this kind of mix of popular dance songs. I think there was one that you can find on YouTube in which they do a mashup of Junior Senior's Move Your Feet and The Prodigy's Breathe.
Oh, all right, sure.
In terms of unlikely mashups, that reminds me of a Tupperware remix party live track where they performed Uptown Funk, and then halfway through it jumped into that Strong Bad song, Everybody to the Limit.
That's beautiful.
Come on, for gods! Come on, for gods! I'll drop that in the Discord later. It was fucking brilliant because it works so perfectly.
What was it? There is the mashup album of I think it's of Daft Punk's Random Access Memories and Strong Bad.
Oh, that's gonna be good. I'll look for that later.
Was that an episode?
I think we got to get to the ranking of the albums and then saying what we've done for next week's episode.
Yes.
Right, so where are y'all putting Devin Townsend? 2 or 3?
Oh, fucking 3. It's no brainer on that one.
Yeah, Devin Townsend was the weakest of the albums, in my opinion.
Okay,
Dominic,
fine.
I think Dominic, you do your 3, 2, 1 first.
3. Yeah. See, Dinosaur Planet. Wow. Diarrhea Planet and Last Dinosaurs they exist in a similar frame of mind for me, so they are very close. 2 and 3, they could swap places any day. I think for today, Diarrhea Planet will be 3, Last Dinosaurs will be 2, and Devin Townsend Project's Addicted is a clear 1.
Man, you just have no music test.
No, that's why we're here.
Yeah, no, number 3 is for me definitely Devin Townsend. Again, there's a couple songs off that album in which I will probably go back to and just say like, yeah, this is alright. But the album as a whole is just, it's. So yeah.
0 for 2 so far with you, I think.
Number 2, and it beats Devin Townsend by a long shot. Again, I enjoy as much as the Diarrhea Planet one. I don't have too much to talk about it. I enjoy it a shit ton, and if I actually heard the Diarrhea Planet last week, I reckon I probably would have put that as rank 1 above Tism, even though I do like the Tism album a lot. I do agree there was faults of the Tism album. And the Diary of Planet one is definitely number 2 in this case, because this coming into this week, there was nothing that was going to beat Last Dinosaurs for me. It had to be something that had to just be revolutionary to me in a week, because again, Last Dinosaurs is something I've been listening to pretty much non-stop for 3 years. So that was always going to be the number 1, but I don't want that to really downgrade the Diary of Planet album, and I really did enjoy that album a lot.
Yeah, good album. For me, it's got to go Devin Townsend, Diary of Planet, and then Last Dinosaurs. Last Dinosaurs really just surprised me. Enjoyed the hell out of it. It's going to my daily rotation. Not my daily rotation, but my album.
And from that, we can agree on one thing. Dominic has no music taste. Thank you for coming.
I'm the outlier here. But Riddle, let me ask you though: would you prefer
Yeah.
Devin Townsend or Janelle Monáe?
So yeah, no, that's what you think would be a good question. But the actual thing that I have as a question to myself is: do I prefer Hot Flash or Devin Townsend? No, I prefer Janelle Monáe to Devin Townsend. I can easily say that.
Okay, I respect that. Okay.
And the reason why I'm going for Devin Townsend, I think Devin Townsend. I really wanted to enjoy it the first time I was listening to it, but I think so far out of all the albums that we've talked about, I think Devin Townsend is probably my least favorite. And that's only just because I found myself enjoying the Hot Flash Heatwave a bit more since the last episode.
It's definitely stuck in my mind.
One of the things I think we
should
do for credit is keep like a running tally of our favorite albums of the entire show.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like once we're done, how long a season of this is going to go for, we just do, like, we go through all the albums and then we just, like, review them again. I've got all the albums in a playlist, so, except, like, the Tism and the Spotify, because Tism's not on Spotify, but I have that written down, so. I reckon once we're done with all this, like, yeah, we have that whole comparison again.
Yeah.
Anyway, next week's albums. Dominic, since you have no music taste, we don't want to disappoint everybody. Let's have you go first.
Next week, I chose Of Montreal's "Lousy with Sylvian Briar," which I chose because it is the first album after their whole glam rock period, and goes for a very different '60s kind of lo-fi, I don't know, country-ish sound that I'm really interested to see what you think of it. Because Of Montreal is known for their, complex pop, and this is not that.
Actually, after having given the Of Montreal one, it is something that I am actually excited to kind of talk about, because I'm joking about Dominic's no music taste. Actually going to serious. That is one that I've, like, hearing the songs off and everything of that, and I'm actually quite enjoying quite quickly of that. So I'm quite excited to talk about that one. Yeah.
Let's not get into next week too much.
No, I'm not going to talk about anything off the album, though. Not until next week.
What's your choice, Riddlin?
So I've chosen my 2017 album of the year. So for everybody who thought Brockhampton's albums were great that year, that Mount Erie's album was great that year, that Father John Misty's album was great that year, that King Gizzard's 5 albums were great that year. Well, sorry, I chose Jungle Giant. Yeah, no one has ever thought a Buckethead album was good. Don't even dare say there's a good fucking Buckethead
There's like
album.
one guy on YouTube who loves every album of his.
Dive into Buckethead one day. Well, I say one day, but it's going to be like 1 year.
The Buckethead year.
This is the Australian year, and then the next year we each have to pick a Buckethead album every time.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
No, thank you. I'd rather just crit. Yeah, so I've chosen my 2017 album of the year. Originally, I was going to pick something else, but seeming as this whole schedule is planned out, this is something that I wanted. The album I'm going to choose the week after is something that I really wanted everyone to spend a week listening to without much more distraction for it.
One more time with the name, just in case it didn't come through.
No, you got to find out the albums of after next week. I'm choosing. I haven't gone up to next episode's album yet. I've picked Jungle Giant Cry at Ferocity, which, as I was talking about earlier with the whole Australian indie dance scene, Jungle Giants is a band that has definitely been inspired by Cut Copy. I think there's a cover that Jungle Giants have done of Lights and Music in which the singer talks about he has memories of putting the bins out to the song. Why that's a memory of his, I don't know.
Like just
This
taking the
album
trash
is
out or being a garbage man?
yeah,
or-
taking the trash out just to the curb.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it is quite a odd sounding album. There's like synthesized kazoos and everything in there. And I don't know what it was about the album. It took me a while originally to actually get around to listening to it in 2017, but it kind of just blew me away. And that is why I decided it's an album that it didn't take me too long to get into as well, which is why with this whole complicated schedule, I decided to shove it in here. And that is what I had picked for next week.
And Tricks.
We're saving the best for last. Come on, Trix.
Oh,
Trix, if you don't say it, I'm going to say it.
My headset died for a second. Sorry there.
excuses.
But the album I chose is something completely out of left field. I'm going to speed through this. Was Smash Mouth's debut album, Fush You Mang, and which I think is how it's pronounced. It's basically "fuck you, man," said through
Completely cut out, so no,
Al
I don't think anyone
Pacino
heard it.
slurring.
Mhm.
It's a fucking great album, and Shrek ruined Smash Mouth. See you next week.
It's Smash
Why
Mouth
can't
Fush
we
You Mang.
be friends? Yeah,
Let's talk about it.
That's gonna be a fun one to talk about next episode.
Oh, it is.
Before we get there, though, let's wrap up this episode. I think that's been an episode.
Yes, it's been an episode.
This has definitely been an episode. I can confirm by the recording that
you,
this has
Trix.
been an episode.
Thank you, Ritalin.
It's been an hour and 30 minutes.
My name's
I've
Dominic.
got to get to school.
You can follow me on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. If you want to hear more of my opinions, I'm also on tiltingwindmillstudios.com. Anyone else want to plug anything?
I'm on Twitter at procrastinaut. At procrastinaut, it's astronaut, but put pro in front of it so that it's like procrastinate astronaut, and I have an underscore at the end of it. My picture is Skeletor. You'll find it.
I have a YouTube channel in which I post absolutely nothing on, so you can get absolutely disappointed by my videos of me struggling to play a ukulele for the art of shitposting. That is, I think it's just on the Callum Hands. I have a website, ritallinforkids.kithub.au. I'm not in .io, so I'm not even going to bother spelling that. It'll just be in the description.
Yeah, I'll handle that.
And thankfully, I don't have a blog anymore, so you don't have to hear my opinions. You're all welcome. Why would you want to hear my opinions in which I just talk about why everyone else's music taste sucks? Thank you, everybody.
All right, that's
We'll
going to be it for this. Bye.
Fuck off, Craig.